Phyllis Wheatley was born in Gambia, Africa around 1753. Her exact birthday is unknown because she was enslaved and brought to Boston in 1761. This name was named after the ship she was brought on, and her last name was named after John Wheatley, who had bought her. She was extremely intelligent and was taught by others how to read and write in the free time she had. The poem she wrote about being soul goes, "'Twas mercy brought me from my pagan land, taught my benighted soul to understand that there's a God, there's a Savior too. Once our redemption, now they're sought, now new. Some view our sable race with scornful eye, their color is a diabolic dye. Remember Christians, black as Cain, may be refined and join the angelic train." In 1765, she began writing poetry. The first poem that brought her recognition was published in 1770, named An Elegiac Poem on the Death of the Celebrated Divine George Whitefield. She was the second woman to publish a book of poems and the first black woman to ever publish a book. After this, she was emancipated, meaning she was no longer a slave. When Phyllis became pregnant, she decided to stop writing and find physical labor at a boarding house to support and provide for her and her child. Her husband sadly left her during this time, and she ended up finishing her life in poverty. Phyllis died on December 5th, 1784 due to not being used to the physical work, and her infant son soon died later. Margaret Corbin was born on November 12, 1751 in Western Pennsylvania. In 1772, Margaret married a farmer from Virginia named John Corbin. John joined the Continental Army in 1775. This left Margaret with two choices. Either she could stay behind, where she would have to care for herself and might fall victim to poverty, or she could travel with John and endure all the hardships and dangers of life in war. She chose to join her husband and join the Continental Army's camp followers. On November 16, 1776, Margaret followed her husband to the battle, and as her husband fought as hard as he could against the British, she and most of his team were killed. When they died, Margaret took over the cannon. Sadly, the British won forward, and Margaret was taken in by them as a wounded prisoner. On July 6, 1779, Congress awarded Margaret the lifelong pension in recognition of her service. It was the first time the new government officially recognized the military service of women, but they only awarded her half of what a man received. On January 16, 1800, Margaret died.
Lydia Darragh was born in 1729 in Dublin, Ireland. She moved to Philadelphia in 1753 after she married a man named William Darragh. He was her family's tutor. When they arrived in the U.S., her husband continued to work as a tutor while Lydia started work as a midwife. They had 5 children together. When General William Howe, a general for the British Army, occupied a house across the street from Lydia, he attempted to make a headquarters inside of her house. However, she managed to convince him to just use their parlor as a meeting place. Living so close to these meetings, Lydia took note of what they were saying and passed along information to her eldest son Charles, who was in the Continental Army. Since Lydia and her husband were known pacifists who didn't participate in war effort, the British had no suspicions. She was the person who alerted General George Washington that the British planned to lead a surprise attack on him and his army at White Marsh. She later died on December 28, 1789 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Mary Hayes was born October 13, 1754, in Trenton, New Jersey. When she was in her early 20s, she married a barber named William Hayes. He decided to enlist in the Continental Army when the American Revolutionary War began. Mary decided to join her husband, and as she was put in similar circumstances to Margaret Corbin, she washed clothes and cared for the sick. This is where people say she got the famous nickname Molly Pitcher. On June 28, 1778, Mary Hayes enlisted to serve with Captain Francis Protector's company in the Pennsylvania Artillery. She was favored for her hard work and bravery. The Battle of Monmouth on June 28, 1778 was an important day for Mary, as that day solidified her legacy as an American hero. After the death of her husband, she later remarried 1793 to a man named John McCallie. She lived the rest of her life in Carrollsville, Pennsylvania until she finally died on January 22, 1832 due to skin cancer.
Deborah Sampson was born on December 17, 1760 in Clinton, Massachusetts. Her family struggled financially, and when her father didn't return from a sea voyage, Deborah's mother was forced to place herself and her children in different households. At 10 years old, Deborah was bound out as an indentured servant to a man named Benjamin Thomas, a farmer. Deborah had to teach herself basic knowledge, but it paid off because later when she turned 18 and her indentured servitude had ended, she became a teacher during the summers and a weaver during the winters. In 1782, Deborah decided to join the army and disguise herself as a man named Robert Shirley. She avoided detection for over 2 years. When she received a gash in her forehead and was shot in her left thigh, she pulled out the pistol by herself. She was eventually discovered due to her falling ill. From there, she was taken to a hospital and was honorably discharged on October 23, 1783. She returned to Massachusetts where she married Benjamin Gannett. She ended up dying at age 66 on April 29, 1827 due to yellow fever. One thing all these women had in common was their lasting impact and effect they have on today's society.
They all inspired millions after them to do the same thing and not to be limited by what others say they can and cannot do.
They set a precedent, seeing as how some of these girls were the first ever to do what they did.
With their hard work and dedication, they set opportunities for the girls in the future.
These opportunities include letting more girls enter the workforce, more women joining the army, and giving women the right to vote, and plenty more.
They made their entire country realize that women are more than just childbearers and wives. That women deserve to be equal to men.
And that is the story of a woman's role in a man's war. Produced by
Ariana Ralph and
Mia Rodriguez.